This is Chatting GPT. I am Adam, aka Rock. My co-host.
I'm Bjorn. I'm a Swedish content creator slash tech guy. I'm content creation wise. I go on with the name of Dad Plays Games. But yeah, I work in fintech over here in Sweden, and I just love technology and AI.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because Bjorn and I both have had our own channels for a number of years, but largely around gaming. I've broadened it a little bit towards more tech, but we're both IT guys in terms of what we do offline. I lecture a few days a week for a college in the IT faculty. I also am involved with AI steering group within that college. Plus, I use AI. I mean, more than just for searching, I literally use it every day in my other work, which is building apps and building websites and other stuff, of which I'm currently building an AI app using no code. They call it, there's a kind of, you got low code and no code, and then there's vibe code. And I don't know which you prefer. The thing with vibe code is I find it's a bit sort of Silicon Valley, isn't it?
Yeah,
I prefer
I'm
to
not a
no
fan of it.
code.
It also I feel like vibe coding is like while it is a pretty good explaining of what it is. It does I don't know if it's already managed to catch a bit of a bad rep, but also like it just comes off a bit strange, especially when you're talking to people who actually do know how to code themselves. It's
Yes.
like it's a way to kind of make yourself. I feel at least how to make yourself be a bit looked down on, which is, I
Yeah,
mean,
and that's right. And I think the thing is as well is if you are a coder, I mean, and I build websites. I've been building websites since the web began in the early 90s. Would I call myself a coder? Not really. Have I always looked for tools to make life easier for myself and shortcut? Yeah, heck. I mean, as soon as WordPress and Elementor and Bricks and all the other guys, we've all gone down that road. So
oh
for
yeah,
us, if you're in a professional setup, like you are as well within your outfit, you're always going to look for the quickest ways, the most effective
oh
ways
yeah.
to do
I
things.
mean, it's like I've in the past week, I've been I've been a part of an evaluation group at work, trying out some new AI tools. And I mean, the thing I was doing with that, without AI, would have taken me a week, maybe a month, um, to do. Looking at how previous parts of that project had gone, I've gotten more done in like the past 3 days than I have in the past 2 weeks, thanks to AI. So like,
Yeah.
yes, we're always looking for tools and shortcuts. We're copy pasting. We're going through. Oh, we have three other things to do. Parts of what I need to do.
Yeah.
If I can just copy paste parts of it and stitch it together, that's how most of these things are built.
It's the way it's
Um,
always been. I mean,
yeah,
otherwise you'd have all these people in Hollywood saying, "Down with CGI, bring back balsa wood Star Wars X-wing fighters." It's how the world goes, isn't it? And the
yeah,
key thing is as well, I always think that look, the point is if you've got some tech knowledge, then you're already off on and running, at the races because being able to prompt with a technical background or at least a full understanding of how UX, UI, or processes work is going to help you tremendously versus someone who goes, I'd like an app. I've seen them myself. You've seen them, Bjorn, on
oh yeah.
YouTube. There'll be channels that the guy is, I don't know, predominantly a graphic designer and he's excited because he's trying out an app. And you see the prompt, and it's like, I mean, it works, but it's bereft of detail. And
Yeah.
if you, as you do, using it day in, day out, the more detail when you break it down, and there's little trick phrases that you can throw in
I mean,
to get the LLM to
I
think.
kind of view it as like, do you spend 20 minutes making the prompt, or this and getting it in 2 or 3 messages, or do you spend 3 hours going back and forth and maybe not even getting a result that's half as good?
perfect.
One
And
of
that's
them
the
is a lot
thing.
easier. I mean, I fall into the trap of doing that both things regularly. You know, sometimes you
Yeah.
don't have the energy to, or the knowledge even to.
No.
Sometimes you don't even know what you're doing. You're experimenting, and then
Yeah.
go for it. But
Yeah.
when you
No.
know what you need, you better just put it all down in a
Yeah,
massive
and
prompt. It
if
helps.
you've got a tech background, if you've got a, even, you know, it doesn't have to be coding, but if you've been around building applications, maybe at a project management level or account management level, then you're already heads above other people. So, you know, I don't think it's necessarily spelling the redundancy of traditional coders. But what's a traditional coder? I mean, it's a job that's evolved. When I was employing loads of them, full disclosure, I used to run a software development company, and we were doing AI, although we called it machine learning in those days, many years ago. And you know, if I think back to the stacks that they were using, and you know, that we were looking for really experienced people in certain languages, whereas these days you just need somebody who's got a fairly good idea of how these things string together. But more importantly, as you and I can testify, Bjorn, we can you can do it yourself now. You know, as you
Yeah,
just
and I
said,
mean,
I've got a team of
yeah,
7 all wrapped up in Gemini.
pretty much,
Perfect.
yeah. And I mean, if you have some people that actually could write their own code, put them, coding tools like Gemini or like Windsurfer Cursor or something like that in
Yeah,
the hands of them, and you can make their life a lot easier. And they can,
yeah,
because even they will have a lot of the code stuff that they find boring and time consuming that AI can do for them. They will,
definitely.
you will have happy coders
Yeah, yeah.
that can
And
spend
it's
their time on
interesting
the
to
stuff that's
see
hard.
to even see the evolution of the tools, isn't it? I mean, we've you know
Oh yeah, I
there's
mean,
zero code, no code tools like Lovable and Bolt. And then you've got Cursor and Windsurf that you just mentioned. And the great thing about them is they're kind of built on VS Code. So if you know your way around whatever language you've asked to build it, then you're off to a head start. But
yeah,
if
and
you
then there's
don't,
like the
don't need to.
extensions that go into existing either VS Code, but also into these others like Client Root Code, but also GitHub Copilot as well. Has all of these features. So like, there's a lot of options out there for it, and depending on which level you're at. And I feel like, I mean, yeah, it's a good environment to be in. And I mean, I started my coding with AI journey back in maybe a year ago, when Project IDX first, when I first found that on the web, and tried out Gemini inside of that, and just, at that point you prompted Gemini for some code, it responded with some code, and then you ask for change, and then you would have to manually find where in the code these new two lines belong, and do all of it yourself. Whereas now you just, you say what you want, and it automatically does those edits for
It's
you. So
amazing
it's
because you've
night and
you've
day just in
largely
the UX.
you've sort of, tell me if I'm wrong, but you've sort of mastered around Gemini, haven't you? Whereas I've sort of tried ChatGPT and Claude, and then gone to Gemini, then not liked it very much, and then gone back to ChatGPT, and now I'm all in on Gemini, although I'm quite liking the look of Claude 4. So I'm a little bit of a flip flopper.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. The reason I had first started using Gemini was that Gemini, their experimental models were, and or rather all Gemini models, um, were free to use up to certain rate limits. And I mean, sometimes you don't want to open your wallet for something, and then
Tell
having
me
a free
about it,
option is
brother.
great. So yeah, I mean, that's why I started out with Gemini, and then obviously also, since I already had Google Drive, already had. I mean, you and I were both all in on Stadia back in the day.
Oh yes,
I've been all in on the Google ecosystem since,
yeah,
for the past 10, 15 years. It kind of made sense to just
yeah,
stick
yeah.
with that, and I mean,
I was worried about where they were going there for a while, particularly as it was their white papers that started it all off. But the guys have come good. Look, we've had a massive week. When we recorded this show, which is the 23rd Friday, the 23rd of May. Now, if we go live with this is all old news, but the pilot is what the pilot is, and the plan is that we will have fresh off the boat news every week. So you'll have the last or the previous 5 to 7 days worth of stuff. But it's been a huge week this week. We have had literally the Google I/O where I couldn't keep up. There was so much stuff. Even now, and I watched the whole show, even now I'm having to go back and remind myself because it was just like, and this, and that, and this.
Yeah, and I mean, that was just the keynote. Then there had the developers keynote and then the developer sessions with even more details and in-depth things. Yeah,
There's even
it's a whole thing.
Just amazing, just mind-blowing what those guys are doing. Then we had yesterday, Anthropic unleashed Claude 4. So we had Sonnet and Opus before. They've switched the numbers and the words, and now it's I think it's Sonnet 4. Where it was Claude 4 Sonnet or Claude 3 Sonnet,
Yeah.
it's now Claude Sonnet 4.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, one thing that all of these AI companies need to learn and get better at is naming conventions. Like, just pick one and go with it.
I know they're really bad. Yeah. Well, you
Oh,
know
yeah.
why? And Google's a great example. These aren't marketers. These are technicians, and right now they are like pig in brown stuff because they're really at the cutting edge. So the technicians are ruling at the moment, and there's just not time to sit down and think, is this a product? And it's interesting because I think Google are the ones, maybe Microsoft with Copilot, in fairness. I don't want to diss Copilot because I think Microsoft are thinking beyond the OpenAI
Yeah,
deal,
they are.
and Copilot is clearly there, integrated into Windows. But Google's starting to think, but they're branding everything. And standard Google stuff, see what sticks. Anything sticks, we may go with it forever. If not, it dies in a week. But we had that. We've had, as I mentioned, Microsoft as well. Microsoft put a bit more icing on their agentic offering, which is a particular interest to me.
Yeah,
And
I
then
just
we
jump in here,
found
like,
out,
for developers.
yeah,
I mean, Google I/O has always been like, it's a developer conference.
yeah,
It is for developers, and Microsoft Build is also for developers. And usually these are not, they're usually around the same time of the year, but not the same week. This time they were not only the same week, the same day.
yeah.
It
What does that
was.
tell you? What do you think? Why do you
It's
think?
hard to keep up as a developer to like, you kind of have to pick one and just go like, just check the highlights of the other. Like, it was hard to just
But
keep on track of everything.
why do you think why do you think all of these guys? Because
I don't think
OpenAI as well
they.
announced a few things, including
Yeah,
potentially some hardware.
I don't like. I mean, these big conferences, they are always, I don't, they have to book the venue, and there's all of these logistics around it. They pick a date, they don't know what the others are picking, and they just hope for the best. And
Yeah.
this time we just end up at the same time. But I do think that they all, over the past couple of months, have kind of gone from trying to time the releases and drops, just being like, oh, it's done, release it.
Just get it out there.
Yeah, get it out
And
there. The earlier, the better. The more feedback we can get, the more we can trim it, tweak it. Just get it out. And then,
Google said that, didn't they? Is it
yeah,
Sundar
they
that
did.
I
Sundar
get
said
them
it.
confused? Yeah. He said right at the outset, yeah, we were going to hang back, and we like to do once a year, and we give you something special to chew on. But we decided to throw 2.5 at you 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
and not
which also set
bother.
the stage for like, hey, don't expect 3.0 today.
Yeah, that was a shame. There was a few voices in the AI content community that were kind of hoping to see a 3, but there's still so much around 2.5, and it's just burst. I mean, it's only just come out of its eggshell.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even. It's not. It's still in preview. It's not even out properly,
Yeah,
and people are already
so
talking about the next
true.
one. It's like, calm down.
I
You'll get it
know,
at some point.
crazy.
Calm
Let's
down.
switch. Let's switch to this view. Hopefully,
Let's
this
get
works. We
cracking.
could
Yeah.
do this view, or we could do this view. But I
I don't think I
think
like the. Yeah, I like the previous one. That's
the
better.
bigger one, because people on small screens are going to think, "What
Yeah,
the
exactly.
heck? Can't see them lovely faces that they have." So let's start at the beginning, and I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll reduce our logo. That makes more sense. There you go. Google research. So this is the I/O. What happened if you missed it page, the Google page, and there's some stuff in it. Just making my way down here. Talking of making your way in the world today, did you see the old matey boy died? That was very sad.
Yeah, I saw.
Old what was he called again? This is again, you see, very topical in 4 weeks' time. George Went, rest in
Yeah.
peace, who was I've forgotten his name, but he was a regular at the bar in Cheers. I just loved that show, but that's me showing my age. You probably did you ever see Cheers?
No,
Was
I
that
did. I
no? I
didn't.
didn't.
No, it was just before
Yeah,
my time, I think.
it was bless, great show. But yeah, it was late mid 80s, I think, mid to late
Yeah.
80s. Anyway, we digress. So, yeah, some stuff that I wasn't aware of. Med Gemma, advanced healthcare. I mean, they kind of, again, it's one of those things that gets talked about a lot. I have concerns at the moment about risking health advice with AI, given how prone it still is to hallucination.
Yeah, I think the benefit of, because I mean they've been doing this for like I mentioned in the article, like this is not their first crack at this. They've been doing it for a while and trying to improve things over time. And Gemma 3, which is the an open source model that's built on the back of Gemini.
Okay.
It's a quite small model, and you can even run, like, I mean, you have a quite beefy PC. You could run this 27 billion parameter text only model on your computer locally without
Okay.
issue. So you don't need a massive data center. This, you could have a couple of versions of this running on a small server inside of an hospital, um, and and these are these so this Med Gemma is highly fine tuned and trained on just like, I mean, if you ask it a code question or a math question or a, like, hey, write me a poem, it will not be able to. This is
Right.
this is like highly trained on only medical data. So like if you give it some medical data and be like, hey, help me analyze, what does this mean, or I have a feeling this could mean this. Like, do you agree? As a second opinion thing, this would be
Yeah.
really good at that. Or
Well,
like, here
I don't know
is
about in Sweden, but in the UK, where we have a free at the point of use healthcare system, and the one thing that I've noticed, Bjorn, with our general practitioners, our GPs, is over the. I mean, I'm talking over the last X years, not just recently, is how they all have or have had Google on the screen, and various links to the medical equivalent of IMDb. And the first thing they often say is, well, what do you think the problem is? And then you go, well, yeah, I think it's lumbago. And they Google it and go, yeah, I think you might be right. So they've been reliant on tech now for a bit. And fair play.
I mean, yeah, they have, and I mean, I think it was Nvidia who a couple of years ago showed off a new version of and I think like this was one of the things that made me very excited about the prospect of using AI in healthcare. Obviously, it comes with a lot of risks. Like, it's like any AI. Like, I think a lot of people confuse AI with the current state of AI with being like, oh, it's this magical tool that does all of these things. It's this thing that will replace everything. No, it's a tool. It's a great
Yeah.
tool for a couple of different, sometimes a very narrow, some very narrow tasks, or sometimes quite broad tasks. But it's a tool that you can use to get better results. And I think it was Nvidia who a few years ago, they had this idea of, like, instead of some, like ultrasound images, they're 2D. They are really, we know how to do them. We have all the tech already out there. But the 3D ultrasound scans are better. But getting a 3D one is obviously a lot. Like, that requires new hardware. It's expensive. Most hospitals don't have them. So what they did was they built this AI model that will take all of the 2D images, and from that create a 3D version. And then they compare that with actual 3D scans of the same thing, and it was like 99% there.
Wow.
So like any hospital can then just run this model in locally in their
Yeah.
on a server in their building, and get 3D images instead, and
That's
have better.
amazing.
So like, I think there's a lot of I mean, that's been out there already for years. So there is a lot of things happening with AI in healthcare that we don't see.
Yeah.
So it's fun that we get to see some of it.
And even more appropriate, my friend, because today I actually had an MRI scan in that big old magnetic tube. So I've, funny enough, been involved in having a scan of that kind today. Now I don't know what they're going to do with the data. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know whether those magnetic resonance imaging devices are still outputting to film or whether it goes, I'm assuming these days it's pixels, and that's data. And once they've captured that data, then it can clearly be interpreted and evaluated by a very specialist AI application like what we're looking at here. So you can only imagine what's already being developed, as you rightly say, and the big guys in that field that are having to come up with new products anyway in order to keep their shareholders happy are bound to be working on software that can interpret stuff that the human eye would possibly miss
Yeah, I
from
mean,
even a
and
detailed scan.
yeah, I remember reading something about it recently, so I looked it up, and there have been trials, even here in Sweden, for example, where um, they've tried to they have like basically the doctor looks at like mammogram images for looking for breast cancer, and they use AI for second opinion, or rather, they already have a second doctor for second opinion, and have the AI as a third opinion. And the AI has, in several cases, found things that, like, oh, I think you should look at this again. And when the
Yeah,
doctors do, they're like, yeah, yeah, we see something here, because the AI has only said, I think you should look at this image again, not why.
yeah.
And when they look at it, they see something. Um,
Right. As a
so like,
prompt. See, this is I think is a really good point that you make here. And I reckon that's the most likely impact socially with, well, maybe at least for the next 20 years, wherein you still have, you know, it's a bit like autonomous driving cars. Yeah. So you still have to have your hand on the steering wheel with a
yeah,
Tesla, for example. So although technically it could drive around a very simple road or a highway or what have you, you've still got as a human, by law in the UK, I guess it's the case
same
in
here.
Europe as well, right, to have your hand on the steering wheel. Well, exactly the same point you've just made. It's brilliant at saying, hey, you two human doctors who are making an opinion or having an evaluation here of what's being presented. Well, I'm your backup. I'm not going to do the job for you, but I will tell you that you missed something, and highly
Yeah,
recommend you go and have a look at it. And the other place where I think that's sorely needed, and I think it will come, is in the judiciary. So even now, and definitely the case in the UK, a judge should be, it should be binary, right? He should look at the facts against the law and rule based on what case law says. But we know opinions can get in the way, particularly on
yeah,
older judges and so on. So actually having an AI judge's assistant that says, yeah, actually that ruling doesn't quite work because of X, Y, Z, or there's not actually enough evidence for this, and it shouldn't be down to your opinion. I can absolutely see AI entering society at that kind of backup
yeah.
level.
Interestingly, I did see another trial or test or study that has been done, where the you've had doctors that was placing doing diagnoses, and they had doctors doing it with with an AI tool to help them, and they had the third group, which was the just the LLM on its own. The
Okay,
doctors had a 74% hit rate.
right.
The doctors with AI had 76% hit rate. The AI had 90.
Wow.
I don't know where, like, I just saw the small summary of it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I think there are a lot of cases where AI can also just be like, I mean, obviously AI is the biggest strength of these models is
yeah.
sifting through vast amounts of data quite quickly. It
Yes.
can look at 1,000 MRI scan images in a minute, and then be
Yeah,
like, yeah, I think we should look at these ones again,
yeah,
and then send those on.
yeah,
You could speed run through a lot of these things, and
yeah.
make things more efficient, but especially also just check again a couple of times.
Absolutely. And just like MedGemma, as you said, based on Gemma 3, which is a tiny but very powerful model,
Yeah. Also open source.
and open source. And just like how that has been absolutely trained on medical data medical papers, medical practices, good practice, best practice, and so on, a judge, a judge Gemma, law Gemma would be the same thing. And
Yeah.
you would absolutely make sure that you've extracted out there, that you've ironed out anything that verges on an opinion that isn't based on case law and fact.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if it wasn't for cost reasons and time reasons, I would love to have the experiment with having it something like a Gemma 3 model or a
yeah.
5.4 or a Llama or something, um, and try, like, take these smaller models and
Yes.
fine tune them on these specific parts of the system that I work with, or we have this product. I mean, we have a bunch of different products and a bunch of different systems. Have one for each of them. And you could have one orchestrator that just like, oh, you need an expert on system A, talk to this AI. If you need a system on expert on system B, talk to this one. And then it's like, oh, we now have these expert responses. The orchestrator can then be, oh, how can I combine them into something that works together and
Yeah.
integrate these together? That
Yeah.
is very doable and possible. I think it requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of good data in terms
Yeah.
of giving that fine tune. But I think it's a really viable way for larger enterprises to
Yeah.
get
To-
some really good experts.
Absolutely,
Um,
and it should be the case anyway. I mean, if you're using an off-the-shelf ChatGPT or an off-the-shelf Claude or Gemini to act as the repository of knowledge in your company, then
you're doing it wrong.
there's absolutely there's privacy issues at the very least. You should be
Yeah.
running your own well-trained and well-honed LLM. But yeah, fascinating to see, and funnily enough, which again touches on my week, my world. They also discussed Learn LM, which really interesting actually. Lots of applications for this, and the funny thing is, and I tapped on it earlier, but I lecture part time for a college, so and AI is increasingly impacting us both in terms of student output, which we have to watch out for, and even preparing lessons and marking lessons. So, we're very much aware of it. I work with the college senior team on looking at best practice and so on. But what I really like, there's so many great things to fall out of this. But when you teach, when you teach in higher education, at least, best practice is that we don't stand and literally lecture. That's the last thing that we should do. So, best practice, Bjorn, is that we spend no more than, say, 20% of a lesson actually just talking at students. And the rest of the lesson should be them researching, exploring,
Yeah, learn by
under,
doing is so much better
right.
than anything else.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
how it should be. And I love the fact with Learn LM that it has these kinds of experiences that we can use in the class. So it has a quiz experience, and it shows down here working on some stuff. So it's taking a whole bunch of otherwise dry and boring text, and the students themselves can actually create quizzes and all sorts of different tasks and bits and pieces just to help them to better understand. And we live in a world where information is 60 seconds long for a lot of these young folk, as you know.
No, yeah.
Whether it's Blue Sky, X, Instagram, or TikTok, they really don't have the focus to spend time academically absorbing lots of information. So the key, I think, for modern and the next generation of teachers is to deliver content that works for the time, the sort of study focus that the young folk have, which suits me because, to be honest, I've also been tainted by all the aforesaid as well. So it
I
kind of
think
works
everyone
for
has
me.
at this point. Like, it's hard not to.
I totally agree,
Yeah,
my friend.
but like, do you see yourself using do you think you will be using this with your classes?
I'm really keen to look at this. I mean, the tools that I have used, and again, in a funny old way, a little bit like the top of the show, we were talking about how I've sort of got played with everything, because that's how I don't tend to stick to one brand. I'm not a brand loyalist. I tend to go where I feel I'm going to get the best bang for my buck. So I've tried various tools, and there are a few really good ones. Gamma is a great tool for putting together presentations. Napkin is really good at doing infographics and stuff like that. So there's lots of these kind of tools that I know myself and my colleagues have been working with. But I love the fact that Google with Learn LM are looking at rolling out a whole bunch of tools specifically aimed at teaching. So I 100%, and in fact, as I said, as a collective, we're looking all the time at the highest level in the college at the tools that are available and what's the best practice that we should employ for both delivering learning and assessing it, and having the young people the tools that they can use without doing the work, because ultimately they still have to learn. I mean, that's the whole point of learning. So we've got to make sure that we don't just simply say go off and let this do the research and write the report and submit it, and yeah, well done, that was a brilliant prompt. It's got to
Yeah.
be it's got to be part of the whole learning journey. At the moment,
Yeah, and I mean,
the
I kind of
balance
like
isn't
I
right.
mean, if you're there, like, I mean, if you are in education education as a student, you are there because you want to learn. At least in higher, I mean, in lower education, you're there because you have to. But in higher education, you're there because you want
Well,
to.
in the UK, you've
You should
actually
be,
you've
at
got to
least.
be in education until you're 18, unless
Yeah, yeah, same
you've
here.
got a job. Same in
Yeah,
Sweden, is it? Yeah, yeah.
or I mean, you don't. I think you have to until you're 16, and then it's like 90% of people do another 3 years, and then it's
Yeah, we,
optional.
we in the UK, unless you have a job or an apprenticeship, you have to carry on with education until you're an adult, which is 18. So we do have 16 to 18-year-olds that don't want to be there.
Okay, yeah,
And that's a challenge. I'm not going to lie. I certainly and my colleagues, we do try to make lessons engaging, and I think our success rate's fairly good in even getting the most kind of jaundiced, uninterested students engaged. And a lot of them, to be fair, come on board not wanting to be involved at all. And within a couple of years, they're flying. So,
and I mean, I think that also that is probably also a benefit of tools like Learn LM or AI in general. Like you can like everyone has something that gets them excited, and then with the help of AI, if you're really excited about like football, and you need to learn physics, well, you can learn physics through football if you just
yeah.
formulate it the right way, and then it suddenly becomes more more understandable, but also more fun for that person. So I feel like there's a lot of gains to be had from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's all. I mean, it is a science teaching. I mean, there's a reason why you get qualified to do it.
Oh yeah.
It's not. You know all this stuff. But yeah, so I am actually really, really keen to look at this in more detail. Learn LM. I'm not sure yet whether they've made it available or whether it's a coming
I
soon thing.
think they are rolling it out into Gemini itself.
Are they?
Like you
Okay.
can basically, I think you can probably tell Gemini to be like, hey, um, create a quiz for this, and it should do it inside of it maybe.
Nice.
But then also in classic Google fashion, a lot of these projects or features are parts of different projects that are in various stages of rolling out.
Yeah.
And some of them are like labs things that it's only available in certain countries, and some
Yeah.
of them is like a sign up to a
Oh
wait
wow,
list.
look at this.
It's weird.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's a breadth. I mean, there's a whole, breadth of learning that
Yeah,
straddles the very, very young of children of your sort of age, your children's age, all the way through to the young adults that I teach. And something like this would work fantastically for your children's age, and the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, the 18-year-olds that I often teach would be really switched off by, by a certain approach that feels a little bit juvenile. So it's horses for courses, but that's not the point. The point again comes back to what we were saying. This is a tool, and it's up to us as educators to employ it in the right way to deliver
Yeah.
the content in the way that's going to work for our particular cohort. So God bless them for at least making it available. And I definitely need to get my head into it. I love as well where they're going with Notebook
Oh yeah.
LM. Do you know if they?
I just wish I had more of an everyday use for Notebook element. Like I
Yeah.
love it. I just don't like in my line of work and in my like where I'm at in life. I don't need it that much. If I had that in school, I would have loved it. I used it daily, but now it's like, oh, I want to use it, but for what?
It's interesting because I actually tried doing a couple of the early Note LM podcasts when it first came out on some stuff around esports, ethics and esports or something. And I did the whole two person podcast thing that they do, the man and the woman. But my class weren't that happy with it. They kind of felt it was a bit cheesy and it
Yeah,
wasn't.
I think
They couldn't
it's probably
engage
good
with it.
for you. Like if you need to learn something yourself, it's great because you can like do it, and especially the paid feature that they have where you can jump in and ask questions and be like,
Interact, Notebook
yeah.
Interact. Yeah, yeah,
And
that's really
I did
cool.
a test where I gave it the rules for my tabletop RPG system that I've made, and I was asking like they were just basically reviewing it, and I asked them, and it was like, hey, slight correction. That is actually incorrect. This is how it works, and then that changed a lot of things, like the
Oh,
whole
really?
scope of where it's going, and like the discussion went into something completely different. So that one is very fun.
I would like. I don't know why they haven't done this yet. I don't think they have, but I would like to be able to choose at least non-American accents.
Yeah, I don't think you can right
Yeah,
now. I think there
that
might be. They did add to AI Studio a mode where you can, and I mean, if you're new to how Google does AI, they have Gemini, which is a front-facing, customer-facing thing, and then they have AI Studio, which is free and everything is available there to try out, and it's like a playground for developers, but anyone could use it. So, I mean, if you don't want to open your wallet and yeah, pay for these paid features, there's a lot of times you can use them through AI Studio. So one of the things they added to AI Studio is that you can create AI native speech generation. So if you click the native speech generation when they what's new, you can then create a script between two speakers, and here you have a lot of voices to pick from. I think it's like 20 different voices.
okay.
And I tried this with like I wrote small scripts of two people. Like this style I wrote was two people pushing a couch up a staircase, and then I had like, "Hey, are you even pushing back there?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying." Like, "Oh, we got a turn. Don't you mean pivot?" And then
Oh, I
added
love
a
it.
small script about it,
It's kind
and
of
it
Laurel and
was
Hardy
really good.
piano thing.
Yeah, it was really good. Um,
So, do you get to
like they,
choose
I think,
these
yeah,
the nationalities of these languages, or are they
you
all
can choose the
just?
nationalities, but there is a lot of very different voice styles to them, um, and
Yeah.
yeah, they were pretty good. And I think like accents and nationalities is probably coming down the line.
I think it's important because obviously not everybody is American, and a lot
Yes.
of these are quite Californian as well. So it's not like they've even got, different accents from different states in the states within
Yeah.
the voices. So I think that's really important. In the meantime, of course, there's always 11 Labs,
Yeah.
where I still reign relatively supreme. I used to have the number one voice on 11 Labs until a couple of weeks ago, and my crown was knocked off. But I'm still, I think, number four for most users and most characters generated. I think it's up to about 2.8 billion characters. But my point being, not necessarily just to bathe in the glow of my own success, but my point
Well
is that, of
deserved though.
course, yeah, there are multi languages there.
Yeah,
In
there
fact,
are.
they even have the ability, I think Google showed this off as well with its translation option, that you can take someone like your very lovely self and suddenly have you talking in Urdu or, you know, Kotza
Yeah,
from
and I
South
mean,
Africa.
which is also interesting because that is a feature that they are rolling out, ish. That is
Okay.
being added to Google Meet for certain languages. I think it's like something like 15 languages initially, where you can speak in a meeting
Yeah.
and then just enable live audio translation, and then you will speak in English, and the recipients will hear it in Spanish, and then they reply in Spanish, and you hear it in English, but with their voice. It's something that they are rolling out now, which you mentioned another one of the many things they have mentioned on Google I/O.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But does it rely on one, the quality of your device, and two, the quality of the network? And I mean, if you're out and
I
about
don't
talking to
know.
somebody in, I don't know, southern Italy with a very, the nearest sort of network transmitter is 40 miles away or something, it's going to struggle, isn't it? I wonder. I
Yeah,
can't imagine it's going to be on device. The amount of power needed.
no, probably not.
I mean, it struggles when you hold the camera up to a menu and get it to change it to text, let alone to hear the native language, do all the processing to determine what's being said, and then have it speak that back at you in your native tongue. That's got
Yeah,
to be a
I am looking forward to
cloud-based.
to trying it out and getting my hands on it and seeing for myself, because it is, as I say, I'm in a perfect world. It will probably work really well,
Yeah.
but how well is it going to work when
Yeah.
the things aren't perfect?
To be fair,
Um,
that hasn't that always. I mean, you
oh
mentioned
yeah, yeah,
earlier that we were very we started our channels around the time that Google Stadia launched, and we've predominantly been pioneering Google and sorry, cloud gaming. And it was always the thing that people said, "Oh, it's never going to take off until everybody's got an amazing broadband connection." Well, but that's been proved to be incorrect. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? If we all sat back and said, "Well, we can't roll out this technology until everybody has a 1 terabyte connection or an
yeah. Then we're
iPhone
not never going to get
23,"
anywhere.
can't
Yeah,
work,
no,
can
I
it?
agree.
Yeah, you've got to keep pushing forward, and
Yeah,
some people are going to fall through the cracks, and that's a real shame.
it
And
is.
we try and help them back up and get, but the bulk of people are going to be able to use the tools and hopefully come up with applications that benefit the whole wide world. We shall see.
Yeah,
We
and I
haven't
mean,
mentioned
AI
much
is
of,
probably like, I mean, the likelihood of AI replacing a lot of people's jobs is definitely real. But I think like
already is.
I yeah, but there's also a lot of truth to the to what the common counterpoint is. To that is, oh, but there will be new jobs with completely new roles. Yeah, and it's like, yes, but we don't know how many, we don't know when or where. It might be, or and for whom. Like if you're a if you're a cashier at a grocery store and they switch over to self checkout, your job is gone. There will be a new job for you, for someone to take
Yeah,
care of those self service
yeah,
stations.
yeah,
Is that a job for you? Job for you? Maybe not.
yeah.
And like that is going to be an issue. There is going to be a greater need for social safety nets than ever. And hopefully, I mean,
Well, it depends
hopefully
where
our
you
country,
live. It
yeah,
depends who your president is. I mean, let's not forget, it was only a couple of hundred years ago that most of us lived and worked in rural communities, either tilling our own fields or those of the slave master, including in the UK. Yes, we were also slaves. And the tractor came along, and the agricultural revolution, and the toll puddle martyrs, and
yeah,
before you knew it, we were all working in factories. And then came the industrial revolution, and the machines came along, and they got rid of half the people that were working in the factories. And yet, we still have something like, I don't know, 7,000% up on the amount of people in the world and they're kind of doing stuff. So
yeah,
it's so interesting, Bjorn. We were just talking then about whether or not you could run a translation app on a device. There's this little piece a little bit further down here talking about language translations, and they do say that 2 months ago we introduced Gemma 3, and our research helped Gemma expand to over 140 languages, and it says making it today's best multilingual open model, which is brilliant. But then it goes on to say Gemma 3N, a model that can run on as little as 2 gigabytes of RAM. Who the heck has 2 gigabytes of RAM?
This guy.
You do. I know exactly.
Go on.
Yeah, no.
On that.
Yeah. So and that is, so if you've got it running in 2 gigs of RAM, and it's built
obviously
for on-device
that is a very
applications.
obviously that model is going to be a stripped down version of Gemma 3 full, but it's still a capable model that can do a lot of the things that you need on a daily basis. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I have been guilty of using like something like Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro or 3.5 Sonnet for very basic questions sometimes.
Oh yeah,
things that these cheaper models could very much do instead.
Should and could do.
Should do, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of an all-you-can-eat package, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which to an extent is what we get. I mean, I use Perplexity all the time for my simple questions because it's really fast. It doesn't give you all the fluff that you get with ChatGPT and Gemini that desperately want to try and strike up a conversation. It just gives you the basics, and it's up to date. It's able to do a really fast web search. And it's it's embedded. I mean, they're already doing a deal and having it embedded on, I think, Samsung, a lot of different phones and stuff. So I love Perplexity. I kind of look at it like, okay, Perplexity is my first go-to if I want to ask something about a medical condition, or how old a star is, or when is that season 2 coming out, that kind of stuff. And then I typically go to ChatGPT if I want something with a little bit more of a conversation, yet decent reasoning. But when I really want powerhouse, helping me to solve an issue, or coming up with write me a report on a client meeting that I've got coming up. I want to know when that company started, who started it, why, what their turnover is, what their customer base looks like. Then I go to Gemini, and I get, and it'll even export the whole thing as a Word doc or a PDF or a website even. I don't know if you've seen that recently. If you get it to write a report, it'll offer to make a little website for you. Which is just unbelievable, mind-blowing stuff. But typically in that order, to be fair. But I don't think there's anything wrong with using Gemini Pro 2.5 to ask when the next season of, Landman is coming out or whatever. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
What else? Yes.
Right.
So
Google I/O. Google announced a whole bunch of stuff. You have the upcoming 3.5 or 2.5 Pro with what they call, was it deep thinking?
Deep Think.
Yeah, deep think.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing is just, instead of having it think for up to a few minutes, be like, oh yeah, no, think it through 5 times and just triple check everything. Go, spend 15 minutes thinking for each answer. Great for really complex stuff. Completely useless, overkill for everything else that people are going to use it for. Which is probably also why they put it, unfortunately, because I don't like this new thing that OpenAI started of putting things behind it, like $200 a month paywall.
That was a shame to see that happen. This
and I mean, I think it comes down to a lot of these massive models, like the high reasoning mode of the latest OpenAI reasoning model, or Claude's super, like the thinking model, that's highest configuration of that, or this new deep think. Like, doing that is very computationally expensive. It costs a lot of money to run. In order for them not to bleed money out of it, they kind of had to. I get that.
But they're using their own chips and their own hosting farms. And
Google is probably the best positioned company to do cheap AI, because they have their own chips that are very, that specially designed for this. They are building their own model specifically for these chips, so that they know, like, they can squeeze the most out of them. I mean, if you look into the world of gaming, for example,
Hmm.
Sony first-party games always look amazing, and that's because they know how to tweak every single drop of juice out of that PlayStation.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with this. Google knows how to squeeze those chips to produce the best thing, and I think that is a massive benefit for Google long term. But even with that, this deep think is going to be too expensive for them to run. Same with the new VO 3 image video generation that we'll get into later. They kind of had to. It's a bummer, and it's also locks it geo locks it for a lot of people because some of this subscription is only available in the US for now. Um, but it's in classical Google fashion. But also, yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, what do you think has to happen in order to bring down it is incredibly expensive AI. We know that. And there's that hidden cost to the climate as well that nobody talks about. But the
Yeah,
amount of
that is
electricity.
a bit of a truth and still not in a sense because I mean these days I mean it's very computationally heavy, which requires a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And running that on your average data center, that is going to be bad for the environment, especially if it's a data center in the US, where there's lot more reliance on things like coal and oil and burning fossil fuels. Um, for example, Google's latest data center that they released opened up over in Falun in Sweden,
Hmm.
that is running on 99.6% renewable energy. And yes,
Wow.
there is a bit of a hardware cost or environmental impact of replacing hardware as it breaks down over time. But I mean, running a query on that is basically the same as starting your car.
Yeah.
Not even driving for a single centimeter. It's just you started it. You now used one or like several deep thinking queries on that
Yeah.
energy wise or climate impact wise. Um, However, if you're the same thing on a data center that's running on like maybe nothing renewable or 50% renewable, that's
Hmm.
the same as driving to the grocery store and back twice. It's like
Hmm.
it's that big of a difference from what data center you're running it on, and you don't know what data center you're running it on.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, it's also more economically beneficial for Google and for Amazon and for all of these data center providers to
Yeah.
have things running in renewable. So they want to do it for themselves as well. So I think over time, I think the environmental impact is there, but over time it will be significantly to a point where it's like over time you won't have to worry about that. Right now, in some regions of the world, yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I often wonder to myself as well with the whole token economy, where and it's a really weird setup to get your head around if you're not involved in
Oh
AI.
yes.
What do they mean? I've got to pay for this. It's bizarre, and we live in a world where we've kind of grown up giving our own data away for free use of applications, and then suddenly when you're looking to do research and searches in a new system that requires you to pay, it's a very odd setup. But one of the things that concerns me in the future when, the costs, if Moore's law or its AI equivalent still stands as far as AI is concerned, then we should see price drops as you get the economies of scale. What I don't know though is that we're going to see the price drop to consumers, or whether what we're actually going to see is massive cost recovery from the likes of OpenAI and Google.
I think over time, like as costs drop, they will drop for us consumers as well, but it will be lagging behind, and it will be like if the cost to Anthropic drops by 50%, but thanks to a lot of improvements in data center running costs, for example, the costs for consumers might drop by 25%, and the difference is going into their pockets to
Yeah.
pay off the debt that they have built up over the years. Because
Yeah,
don't get me
there's a
wrong,
lot of money
these
in
AI projects are not like they're not making money. They haven't. I'm pretty sure haven't made money for years. Some of them might be making a bit of money now, but no, they are super expensive.
Oh yeah, I mean we know that OpenAI only exists because of investment from the likes of Microsoft
Yeah.
and many, including Elon Musk. There's all sorts of, I think Peter Thiel's in there somewhere. There's a whole bunch of Bond villains that have sunk money into OpenAI. And to be fair, there's a whole bunch of stuff for future episodes that we're going to need to touch on. But
Oh yes.
I'm conscious that we're only a few minutes away from the end of the show, and we've not got beyond Gemini, which is not a
Yeah.
bad thing because it's our
To be fair, there
pilot
was a
show.
lot of Gemini
There
this
was
week,
a
but
lot of
yes.
stuff this week. We could have gone on for 7 hours purely on
Yeah, and I
Gemini.
mean, yeah, definitely. Shall we speed
So
fire a few of them? Let's speed.
yeah, well, you tell me, what would you like to cover?
I just want to say VO3 looks
Yep.
amazing. The fact that they can like the video quality looks a lot better. The prompt adherence is a lot better, but also the fact that they can do audio and even dialogue and lip sync all of that is incredible.
Yeah.
I wish it was not US only for now, and I wish it was not locked behind this massive paywall for now, but it is. But it was like, yeah, give it 6 months and it will be in the hands of everyone for like sort of free almost.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of waiting.
Well, we had to wait
That
a
is
long
amazing.
time for Sora, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think,
And
but at least I mean, Sora was showed off but never released for, and then they didn't release it for like almost a year. This at least is like, oh, it's shown off and it's out there, but only to select few.
yeah,
And I
and
think again, it's because it's expensive to run over time.
yeah,
That cost will drop, but like
it,
it's
it's also difficult to know
Why do you
how
always
much. I mean, I've seen some content creators that have had a play with it, but I mean, look at this. This is what's amazing. We haven't got. I don't think we've got an audio. Let me try. Actually, may have. Can you hear it? But what's amazing about the content with VO3 is that it also has audio syncing.
Yeah.
So you can literally, as it's showing here, say, do me a guitarist playing singing an acoustic song, and you've got the whole bokeh thing going on there. You've got audio, all of those instruments.
yeah, it's like it's so like that. I mean, VO2 is good. I've made some, I generated a bunch of like drone shots of a like this fantasy world that I'm making a game for, and then I combine that into like a trailer. It's up on my channel. It's like all just AI clip thrown together for like a minute.
Yeah,
They
it's
look
great.
really good. That's VO2.
Yeah.
This is like, like if this had come out in 2 years from now, and if I saw, someone showed me like, here's a glimpse of what's coming in 2 years, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's out now, like just a few months after VO2 comes out,
Yeah.
it's kind of wild.
The other thing, though, Bjorn, we know this because we both have subscriptions with various generative AI producers, but one particular one where you get given something like 280,000 credits a year or something to use across various models, and VO2 was like one video would take almost half your credits.
Yeah.
So I would hate to think how much this kind of stuff costs to generate. And this video, by the way, which I'm the first one seen this, but this is actually in 1080p. Now, I have never seen any video created in any of the models in anything other than 480p, 720 if you're lucky. So whether this is a real MVP, VIP, the best we can do, and this ain't what you're going to be able to do in it, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, demos are always cherry picked.
Yeah.
So like this will be the best that they have
Why
done.
do you
Like
always
maybe it took them
come around
15 tries to
here? Why
get this
don't you
specific clip.
get out of
But the fact
my
that they can
head?
get this clip with this audio and this syncing is kind of wild.
It is stunning. But, as you've got to bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the thing that is often forgotten, this is not, AI is not generating this from nothing. It's not creating these images from its own imagination. It is knitting this stuff together from what it has been taught. It has learned what an Asian opera singer might look like, and it's stitching it together to create these images. It's doing it amazingly, but a lot of it is down to the quality of what it's
Yeah.
fed. And a lot of the cheaper Gen AI stuff is just, it doesn't look great because they don't have the resources to throw
Yeah, and I mean,
amazing
I think
quality
that is also
video in
something
there.
that over time will vastly improve just thanks to
Yeah.
other models improving. Like the fact of the matter that like, you have models like Gemini, I think also ChatGPT to some extent
Hmm.
can. I mean, you can give it a picture, and it will know what's in that picture. And by doing that, I mean, if you give it a picture and say, like previously, if you wanted to train an AI to create pictures of opera singers, you
Yeah.
would have to be like, here's a picture of an opera singer, here's a picture of something that's not an opera singer, and
Yeah.
tell it this is it, this is not it. Now you can basically just first take 10,000 images, give that to an AI, and be like, hey, say what this is in all of these, and then give that to another AI to train it to create more of them. So like previously that would have taken a year to just create the data set. Now we can do that in a couple of hours. That itself is going to accelerate the next generation,
Yeah.
which in turn accelerates the next generation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advancements going, and like that, which is also why it's going so super freaking fast. I did see a podcast with someone from Google talking to Hannah Fry. She has a podcast together with Google where she interviews Googlers about AI, and one of the things they talked about was like previously we have in a lot of cases trained the models on like human created stuff, but now we're getting to a point where like maybe we should not do that, and maybe we should instead like first of all because we're running out of human data made stuff, but also be like, hey, let's instead show it AI created stuff and have it you know figure out its own thing. Like when Google many years ago now launched the AI model that could play Go, the board game,
Yep.
Asian board game, the it made moves that no human had ever done before, and when the humans saw them, they were like, "Oh, that's a genius move." Like one of those moves was I think it was a famous move of 62 or something in one of the games, and it's like that move has now been studied by masters and be like, that is incredible. Like that
Wow.
changed the whole game for forever. Like that, the existence of this move, and no one hadn't thought about it before. The AI thought of it because it didn't know. Like the model that did that was a good model. It was trained on
Yeah.
human data. It took it months to get that good. They later did another model where it just said, "This is the rules, and you have no data. Just play yourself." And
Yeah.
that model took, I think it took 2 hours for that model to get better than the model that beat the world champion.
That's one of the things that astounds me with AI is if you talk to the engineers and you say, "So how does it work?" They go, "We don't
Yeah, I don't
know.
know.
We don't know.
Who knows?
We just tell it to do stuff and it does it." And
Yeah, and I
that's
mean
just
it's like
like, what? It's like a whole
yeah, and
new
then
life form.
I think it was a few weeks ago with like Google also again Google, a lot of Google this week, where Google announced that they had made an AI model that was creating original ideas.
Yeah.
Like it was a science one made for science to be like, hey, this is we're using this to try to come up with new science things, and it would come up with original ideas that humans hadn't done before, and be like, and create new science from nothing,
Yeah.
um, which is for the first time AI has ever done that. And that I mean,
It's
I
interesting,
think they
isn't
have
it?
applied that on itself, having it be
Maybe that's
self-learn,
the
improve
thing,
more.
Bjorn. Maybe what's happening here is that we're not evolving fast enough as a species. Right? And we can. That's why we're still acting like apes, territorial monkeys. And so what we're having to do is actually create artificial evolution with AI.
Yeah, very much.
And I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, I feel like we've opened Pandora's box. It could be,
Can't close
advancing
it now.
society and civilization and be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It could also be the end of us, but it's too
Yeah.
late to stop it. We just gotta roll
we
with it and
we
hope for the
can't
best.
close it now. And talking of closing, we did start with quite a mountain of info to get to. We
Yeah,
didn't
we
even
didn't. We
touch
got
on it.
halfway through point one.
Did it's true, but I think as a pilot and a concept, I've really enjoyed this. I think
Yeah,
definitely moving forward, we've got plans.
yeah.
This
And on a bit
one,
of a bit of a less crazy week, I think we'll be good.
yeah, and we'll do some stuff that is around a specific topic as well.
Yeah,
It'd be quite useful to debate stuff philosophically on where things are going with AI, as well as do news. Hopefully,
and
you've
also look at
enjoyed our
how
approach.
Yeah, and
Go
also
on.
look at how you can, use it in real life. Real life applications. They're not just,
Yeah.
oh, this super cool thing that they announced. It's cool because they said it was cool. But
Yeah,
more
and
like,
and
what?
and
How
that
could this be
amount of
optimized?
people are going to find it useful. No, absolutely. That's very much what we're going to be about. But I have really enjoyed it. Thank you very
Oh
much
yes.
for your time. I know
Thank you
you're
for
an
having
hour
the
ahead
idea
of me.
to do this.
We will aim to be doing this more regularly. We don't know when that will be when we're recording this because this won't be coming out for about 3 or 4 weeks after we've recorded it. But by then, hopefully, we will. So check out the description below. That'll give you a bit more information. And in the meantime, enjoy the tech. Thank you so much, Bjorn. See you again soon, my
Thank you.
friend.